This is probably my final pet hate. I'm just too busy. I've got so many client projects still open. I need to focus on those. It's kind of like the self-fulfilling prophecy to being stuck forever. It's how a lot of builders or investors will convince themselves that tomorrow is okay because they just have to handle all their current busyness
Yep.
of affairs and clients. And then 5 years goes down and it's like you're still in the same position. It's just 10 times worse. So
I guess the first piece I can say is, fair enough, if you might need to keep signing a couple of those projects, fine. Okay. Some people can't just go, oop, drop project, move. Sometimes it's different.
Yep.
So if you're continually just signing those projects to get through the next 12 months or whatever it is, make time for this. Still go back and make time for this, right? Work on that, make some time for this. Go start looking at sites, get active, start building that part. Why are you still making the money on this? You got to be active. You're not going to do it if you keep going that way. You've got to pull yourself away for a bit. Just say, you know what? Fucking Fridays, I'm doing this. I'm planning my development journey and I'm going to go find a site, or I'm going to start looking, I'm going to start talking to agents or whatever it is, or I'm going to look for a JV, or you've got to be active in this space, because in 5 years' time, you will still be in that space.
Yeah. So today's one, I think, is going to be the one for the records. And the reason I think it's going to be the one for the records is because we naturally spend a lot of time talking about all the important parts of developing, the doing parts, the feasibilities, the site acquisition, the design, the doing things properly. But we don't often address the big elephant in the room, which is usually like what holds a person back, what holds a builder back, what holds an investor back from doing a development. And because there is so much fear in developing, and in particular financial fear in developing, I think it's super important to get to the root of the problem, which is what is holding people back. I'm lucky to work with a lot of guys like yourself, and I think you are one of the people that has been able to overcome so much in terms of reasons not to develop, and you've got so many reasons why you develop, but unfortunately most aren't cut like you. And a lot of clients that I work with, or friends that I work with, they hold back, they delay doing, and they don't develop even though they desire to so much. So I see some hold for months on end, years on end, and that cost is just so enormous. The dollar cost, the fulfillment cost, and just the chance.
Time.
And time. Yeah, it's a killer. So today I'd love with you to just iron out some of these big limitations, these limiting beliefs, these blockages, these barriers.
Which you always still have and battle.
Always.
If you don't, they're always going to come up in the thought. You got to continually train yourself to not listen to it and move away from it, regardless of, whether you're starting, but they'll always pop up. That's the thing. So you got to manage it too.
Absolutely. And I think they will always pop up, but I think there's a skill set that can be learnt to reframe. So if you have, limitations, they can be reframed into a positive light. And I think if I gave just a basic example to kick this off, and it's something that sticks with me a lot with how you operate, is that you see blessings in the learnings, and the learnings aren't always positive at the time, but that's where you've taken your greatest learnings, and that's where you've evolved the most. So I do believe every single limitation or blockage can have a much, much greater positive outweigh or reframe to it.
I think I'm starting to learn that it's leading you towards something else. When these things happen, or these limiting beliefs start to come in, or negative thoughts, or whatever it is, they never used to be like this. I used to think pretty negatively,
Me too.
to be honest.
Me too.
I used to do it a lot, and it would definitely outweigh the positive.
Yes,
but
me too.
At that time, you just keep pushing.
Yep.
But obviously, moving on in life, and you're training yourself to not think about the negatives. And I'm starting to believe that, when you go through these, I guess, harder times, I think it's leading you towards something bigger. And I think you just got to get through it. And then once you get the other side, you'll realize, it really wasn't the do all end all. The way you think is huge. And you got to overthink the mind, really.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'm sort of looking at it lately.
And it's sometimes it's overthinking the mind, and sometimes it's just channeling the mind to think in a particular way.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are conditioned to think pessimistically. And so I'm the same. I historically was quite a pessimist, right? What if this happens? I'm screwed,
Yeah.
right? But I think you can go, okay, that could happen, but I'm going to mitigate as best I can that happening, or control it as best I can. But
Yeah.
what if it doesn't happen and this happens? So it is all about how you're working with your mind. And unfortunately, the harsh reality is a lot of people moving into developments or desiring to move into developments or hoping to do developments, they get too stuck in the limitations
you do.
rather than addressing the limitations and acknowledging them,
Yeah.
just making the unconscious conscious. I think that's a big piece as well.
Well, I was thinking about this more this morning. One of the things I've noticed is in work or life or development or building or whatever it is, just anything. Well, I used to think of a negative thought or what the worst outcome could be and then continually think of that.
Yep, sure.
Just continually think of that.
Sure.
And it just wasn't working. Now I've realized probably in the last year or so, I think of if I venture into something, I will always, the first thing will come up will be a big, what's the worst case scenario? That's the first thing I think of. And then now it's like, okay, well, that's the worst case scenario. If I get to that point, how will I overcome it? And what will the solutions be to get out the other side of it? And then once I think of that and I put that in my head, then I remove
Good.
the negative thought. That's how I've sort of trained that part, and then start thinking of the positives and always think if that comes back, well, I've got a plan
Yeah.
for if that happens.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this is about, this whole session. It's about mitigating the fear, right? So you can take action, because I think too many people go, oh, what if this development went south and I lost $1 million? Fuck that. And then they kind of just go and stop. Like they just, because that's the dominant thought or the dominant feeling. Whereas I think what you've done is you've gone, okay, I'm going to reframe that to how can I make sure that doesn't happen, or mandate that not happening, or mitigate that happening, so that I can then focus on the idea of it, of the outcome being generated.
Once you have that in your head and you go, righto, well, I know I can take control. I've got an option or a choice that I can move to if this happens. And look, most of the time it won't happen, but you got to listen to people that it has happened to more. And I can tell you now, I've gone backwards probably more than forwards.
Yep.
That's the truth. So
that backwards probably made you go forwards.
It does. And then you got to realize, I think, that when you do go forwards, you got to be really grateful for it, and you got to enjoy it. But you also, when you are going backwards, you got to enjoy getting out of it. You got to enjoy finding the solution to get through it and all that sort of stuff. You got to, as I've always said, the process. Yeah. So that's a big part of the play now in the last couple of years. But I think things happen in your life, like, whether it's personal or whether it's work, whatever it is, which, everyone's had, and I've had in the last, sort of 5 years, probably the biggest ones ever, they mold it. And I think you've got to look at them and then go, righto, it's good. Everything's good. And you can if you keep pushing, if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, it eventually unfolds.
Yeah, I think we did a talk a few weeks ago, and it was around that. It was like you can address the fear at the start, and mitigate it, or when you're going through the process of something you really enjoy, you will work it out, because you will push the solutions, you will push the strategies, you will work the options, and you will get it done. And I think that's important to know, that there's always positivity in solutions, whether it's before it even starts the development or whether it's going throughout it, right? There's no reason to sort of hold. There's no reason to block yourself, because you've always got opportunities. You've always got cards to play.
Well, I heard one thing from someone, a mate of mine, and we do a lot of work together. And I remember ages ago, something was happened to him, and the words he said, which I'll still always remember, and I go, what happens if that happens? He goes, well, I'll just start again. Like, and I seriously, those simple words, he'll know who I'm talking about, but those simple words were like, I'll just start again. I'm like, all right, you know what? It is that easy. Like, I mean, as long as you're still breathing and everyone's still good and everyone's healthy around you, well, you can. So you got to have a different outlook on it. And look, it's taken me bloody God knows how long, like forever. But I'm starting to sort of slowly realize it now that, you can start again. Millions of people start again.
Makes it easier. It makes you feel easier.
100%.
Makes you feel better about what you're aiming to achieve.
Well, as they say, the negative thought, like, what is it, 50 times more powerful than a positive thought or something? So That's definitely true.
It's
That's 100%
and
true.
that's most of us, yeah. So what I thought today is what we'd do is we'd actually, rather than just go back and forth on this, we would address some of the biggest limitations,
Yep.
okay, that go on subconsciously and unconsciously in the mind of builders wanting to do developments, investors wanting to do developments. I'm privileged like you to have so many clients that are builders or investors wanting to do this stuff, okay, and we're actually going through a few together at the minute, right?
Yeah.
I thought if we go head on
Yep.
on each of these big ones,
Yep.
we could unpack them a bit.
Yep.
And I think by unpacking them a bit, the listener or the viewer will go, wow, that's what I'm kind of not even fully conscious of is going on right now.
That's where I'm at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I'll kick it off.
Kick it off, son.
Perfectionism. Okay, or the perfectionist limiting belief. Okay, this is one that I see a lot and I hear a lot, right? And it's around like waiting for it to be perfect. So, for example, the feasibility to be perfect, waiting for the perfect site, waiting for there to be $1 million in it, making sure all the variables stack up before execution. And sometimes this can be 12 months, 18 months, 24 months of sitting waiting for perfectionism when if non-perfectionist development was undertaken still methodically, it would have been done and maybe $500,000 would have been made over that 1 or 2 year trajectory, which would catapult someone on their journey. So I want to iron out that one first, this like trying to wait for it all to be perfect when in my opinion, it's about getting some reps, getting some experience and getting some ideally learning. And it doesn't have to always be highly, highly, highly profitable if it's moving you in the direction you want to be.
People need to understand it's like any business. Every business goes up and down, right? If it doesn't, congratulations to you. But every business goes up and
100%.
down. And it's the same with development. And you know what? You're going to develop some that are crackers. You're going to develop some that are crackers that might not make enough that much money. But when I look at gaps in between things, that's what scares me. I've always said that. That's my. I like things moving, so I think you need to. And it's a big old saying, like, when is the right time? Well, the right time to do it is now. You know, if you want to do something, you've just got to do it. Like, you've just got to take the steps and actually do it.
And I think that's worth more than money.
It is.
I think it's worth more than money.
Yeah, and realize, the people might be different. People might have people in their corner would have helped them do it. Other people never had it. They have a different type of drive. I think you got to believe in yourself. And if you want to do something, I'll jump at a lot of things if I love it and I want to do it. You just got to do it. You got to take the step. I don't like gaps in between developments. There'll be times where I'll settle and be simultaneously settling on the next one. Is it the right play? At the time, I just go with my gut. So I just do it and then I look at another picture. If you just go, right, because I've got what I would like to do, and I guess, you got to know what you want to do and what your end goal is and where you want to be. And ours is creating homes that, what did I say? Change lives. Like I want to be just creating amazing homes for people. But some of these homes aren't going to make the amount of money that you want along the way, and other ones will. But that you can't keep thinking of that. So, and then I look at the brand, and then I look at what will this build get me, even if it only made me a bit of money, what's it going to get me after that? So you got to, I guess, broaden the horizons and look at a bigger picture.
I had that conversation the other day, that exact conversation with a client of mine, and he'd been holding for a bit, okay, and he's quite frustrated that he's been holding.
Yep.
And I had the exact conversation word for word that I had with him was, this isn't about the $1 million. It's not about being perfect. It's about you doing a feasible project as best you can, doing it now. And if you don't make the $1 million, let's say you make no profit at all, but your building business gets the margin and the markup, right, that it ordinarily would doing a client project. Once you complete that project, you've done one for yourself. You've had the business of developing. You've had the business of developing, right? You'll be a hell of a lot happier, and you'll double that position.
Yeah.
And that for him was ease. It was like, wow, that would be okay. Like if I just got the markup in the margin, it would be okay. I said,
exactly.
Ideally,
it's the same as doing someone else's build, isn't it?
Yeah, but he gets to do it for himself.
Yeah, exactly. But what I mean is, if the development arm end of it didn't make the money that you wanted to, but the building arm did, it's the same as doing someone else's job,
but a lot happier.
Exactly.
And for him, he's like, wow, if I make $500,000 or $1 million, I've got super lucky and I've got a bit of bonus and everything. I said,
Yep.
even if you didn't get that though, you just got a paid for education. And if the gross profit in your business was $500,000, right, give or take, right, it's better than paying the government $100K to go sit at university.
And not only that, like, like I've always said, I'll drive around the kids in 10 years' time. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not going to drive past the house and go, oh yeah, I just built that. I'm going to say we developed and built that, and that's our style and that's our home. Whereas that, you build someone else's, that's their style, that's their home, but you're building it for them.
And you know what? For you, because I sometimes I feel I know you better than you know you, right? Is you just love to do art, right? You just love to create, and it isn't even really about the money, right? It's just about
And so
for you, even if you did a development, didn't make profit, but the building business got paid, and you got to do it your way and your creation, I know you are 100 times happier because you created it.
Well, look,
it's your legacy.
And you look at what LaBelle's done, and I think the attraction that development has got is, I don't know, I think it'd be more than, if not up there with anyone on the Central Coast. So you got to look at that as well, and I love it when people enjoy seeing it.
It's forever.
I love taking people in there.
Yeah.
People bring up, so I want to go through there. I don't care who it is. I'll take them through. Oh no, sorry, I haven't got enough time. I'll take them through. And there's heaps of random people that have taken through, and it's nice to see the reaction on people's faces when they go into them. So there's just more to it. Like you can't just, look, I'm not going to lie, when I first started out flipping and that, it's like, let's get profit. But I was building to something, and now it's just like, let's do these things and let's just see where they go.
And I absolutely said that to him as well. I said, still go in with a profit, still go in.
You got it.
Still do everything right, but
do
don't attach yourself to that's the only way, because there's so many benefits of just moving.
Well, my worst case scenario when I look in it, because as I said, some of these developments don't stack up at the start, as everyone knows, and then you do the other ones that do stack up. And when I do them at the start, I look at them and go, if the worst case scenario is that I break even at the end of it, I'm going to do it.
Well, there you go.
If I say, because there was a big downfall where I lost a lot of money, and you got to train yourself to think differently to come back. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing that one again, but I'm happy to do a beautiful development that someone will move into and will change their lives, and they just love it, and it gets that much marketing media and everyone talks about it, and walk away with $0. That's all right. That's fine. Move on to the next. But I'll just take away the ones that I know that there's a possibility of losing some big dollars, because I've been there before and I don't want to do that part again. So $0 for me is fine. I have a figure in my head that I should make after the feasibility, and then hopefully at the end you get uplift because of the product or the time that the market's in. So they're the 3 steps that I'll look at, and $0 is fine. It's seriously, it's all good. Is it great? No. But is it going to pull me under? No. Move on to the next. But there's that beautiful process that's done.
Yeah, and every time that I've seen you be okay with $0, even if it was 0, which I haven't seen you do a 0, but even if it was 0,
I've done a minus part.
yeah, well, we can talk about that in a second. But every single time, your brand has gone off its head, right? And so even if it was a 0, right, the amount of hype and social proof and opportunities around you has created like 100x because you did it for you and your creation. So again, I haven't seen you do the 0s. I've seen you do the negative was before me, mate. But the point is, right, there's so many benefits, even if you did do the 0.
It is. It's exactly right. It is. And a big thing for me was the branding. And sometimes the reason it'll be a 0 is because the product that I want to create, like if I'm going through a development and I've got that vision in my head, the decisions that I make through that development will not be dictated around how much I'm going to make.
Yeah.
If it was, I would have made heaps more.
Which is why you always...
The reason I make those decisions along the way, whether it costs more or not, is because of the product it'll be at the end. And that's the reason sometimes you might hit a 0 in those figures. I always believe that if we do this and we do this well, that it might take a little bit longer, but it will return.
Mhm.
I just think that's how you should think. I just think that you should
Yeah.
do the right thing and
But I
not
think
not
that's- but I
not
think
not
that-
rip shit out of
No.
a project to put more dollars in your pocket, because I can tell you now, 5 years down the track,
Yeah.
that'll slowly come
And
back.
I think that works for you, though.
Yeah.
Like, to be fair, I think the money's a byproduct of you doing the right thing and creating in the right way. And to be fair, it does work. Every time you put it, you go the extra layer to create, you get the result.
We're
So
trying to
I
move the
think
needle each time, so
Yeah.
so you've got to yeah. Everyone's different. Yeah, you can if you want to think of dollars and bring it back in, but I just think the long play in this, and the brand and the reputation and the extra that we're putting into these projects will one day move to a point where it'll pay off and people are like, this is what we want. Whereas instead of trying to make the money here, that's just the way I think. Everyone thinks differently, but that's where we're at with it.
Another big one is like I don't have the money. I don't have the money. Like it's always a big one, and it's a lot of it's crazy because people do have the money, but it's like I don't have the money. No one will invest in me. I've got no money, right? And I think that's a big limiting belief. Or I don't have enough money. Or when I have enough money, it just becomes this. But again, like the money's there. Like,
not only that, but like it depends on what stage you are at your life. Like I came into it with no money, so for me, it started from zero. So there was nothing there to start from. So I had to make the money, or I had to get the capital. And I had all these, it's going to be footy and all this stuff, and then everything changes, and then I love property, and I had to make the money. I wasn't given any. So, but I probably thought more about cash flow blockages or getting the money more towards the later end, because I guess the vision was bigger. So when the vision's bigger, the cash grab's bigger.
And I think that
So, well, I guess what I'm saying is, if you really want the money and you really want to start it, you can get it if you really want to. Because I've did it at the start with no money, being younger and come from nothing, and really knew nothing about it and had to learn it and do it. So you can get it if you really want to. And that was when you don't really know anything when you're young. But now is probably more when I think about it, but that's how you got to think about it, because you got to be more strategic, because the play's bigger. So if anyone says they can't get the money, or that's my blockage, or, well, you can really get it if you really want to in many different ways. Or if you can't get it, give yourself a 3-year plan to build that capital to have enough to do it.
Yeah, but I think the more often than not, right, the money is there in so many ways, right? The money's there on JVs, right? People as a builder, like
So JV is a joint venture.
Yeah, but as a builder, right? Like when you're doing good stuff and you're doing good stuff for clients.
But you have to have another thing, that's exactly right, but you've got to look at the long play. So if you're a builder and you want to do a JV, no one's going to JV with you just being a builder at the start. Get some runs on the board, build some good projects for 2 years, right? Then go for a JV where people are going to want to JV with you. You know what I mean? People need to understand there's a strategy to doing a JV or wherever. Because if you've got this person here that has a $3 million property, and then you've got this builder here and this builder here, and this builder's done a couple of additions and renovations, and this builder here's built some really cool products, they're going to pick this one on reputation.
Yeah.
So give yourself a plan and work to that JV and do it.
But I want to take it back. I want to take it back to simple, like not crazy JVs. I want to talk about simple, right? Someone who's
family members.
Yeah, exactly my point, right? I want to demystify the limitations, right? So again, builders, this is most, I'm generalizing here,
100%.
but most builders, right, will go in, they'll do a lot of good builds for clients, and they won't even do any reps for themselves. That's the reality of what I'm seeing. For them, who know how to build, and they say, I'm the greatest builder, I know how to build inside and out and upside down, right? For them, it's about, if you've got family, right? If you've got friends, if you've got people in and around you that would love to do a small project, right? A renovation even, or a flip, right? Do it with them, right? You don't have to build this whole JV thing up to me. It can be just cool.
Could be anything.
I'll put some money in, right? We'll share the equity. We'll do it in a way. That builder, even if he gives all the money, to the family member, right? He's still got to create something and
Exactly.
do something
Yeah.
and get some reps on the board,
Yeah.
right? That in 12 months' time, that family member goes,
Let's
oh,
do it
I
again.
want to do it again.
Yeah.
And that same builder goes,
Creating something
fucking
from
how
nothing.
good was
You
this?
create
I
something.
can
from
take some
nothing.
learnings out of this. And then his other friend goes, well, can I put some money in? And at that point, yeah, he can make it a bit more about him this time.
Yeah.
So he can bet more profit. The point is, the money is always there.
Yeah.
Even some of the stuff we've done, right? You've gone and you're like me. You're minded like me, always about getting more money and getting more leverage and low docs and whatever you got to do private just to get the money. But even some of the stuff we've done where we've gone and played with valuations and then taken so much more money out to keep the journey alive, right? Sometimes the mainstreams won't do it. The lower docs will do it, etc. There's always money. Like there's always money, whether it's capital or equity from other people, whether it's from bank lending, there's always
people need to understand that getting money or funding for development is not a mortgage, right? You're not doing it for 30 years. So yes, the extra 0.5% or percent over 30 years makes a really big difference to pay off your home if that's the person that you want to be. And there's plenty of them and that's fine. But you got to take that away from development finance. Development finance is completely different. You know, your maximum's going to be, 18 to 24 months, generally 12 to 16, whatever. So that little extra 1% that you're not getting from mainstream lending is not going to be a big play at the end of the development. But it will be a big play if you're a person sitting there paying a 30-year home loan off. 100%. So a builder trying to move into a development space needs to understand that it's not set up like a mortgage.
Yeah, I've got a perler story on this, mate. And you'll love this. This will get you.
Hit me.
You'll get excited, right?
Okay.
So, a builder, okay, he's doing a development and he's going through a similar lender to what we did recently. That's a pain in the rectum, right? But anyway, won't talk about that too much.
I've said years ago.
I know how it is,
but it's a good
anyway, he's doing a similar thing, right? And in his head, he's going, oh my God, how am I going to cash flow these repayments on land and construction? How am I gonna pay the LVR position? Blah blah blah. Right? I said to him, why don't you just entertain a private lender? Okay. How ironic is this, right? Normal perception with the private lender is, no, I'm going to have like 40% in. That's usually the perception, right? It was a good feasible project. We went and got the private lender's opinion on it. Okay. Private lender said, cool, we'll do 20% of your cash in at the start, right? Based on commentary around the valuer, okay, before you even buy, the end val's really going to stack up, okay? It's like really going to stack up. It was a good project in a good spot. The likeliness is you won't have to put any more money in after the 20% based on how good this project is. And guess what? All your cash flow limitations of how the F you're going to fund this, right? We're not going to ask you for any repayments. We're going to cap the interest to the back or capitalize the interest to the back, no interest repayments throughout. So he's sitting there now going, wow, I was going to not do the deal. He wasn't going to do the deal, but now all I've got to do is put 20% in for the land, which is like 2.5 mil, 500K. I don't have to put any in for the construction, and I don't even have to fund the payments until the end. Wow, I'm definitely going to do this. He was not going to do the deal.
Yeah. So capitalized interest is, okay, let's just say your project's $1 million and just to make it a bit simple, and your interest is 10%. Instead of borrowing the $1 million, you're going to borrow 1.1. Right, and the 100,000 that you borrow is the repayments for the 12 months at 10%, which will sit in an offset account, and that funder will withdraw that every month, so you're actually not paying it. So you're actually lending or leveraging your interest with that funder to pay for your interest instead of you forking it out every time, which when you get the bigger developments can be, which we do, and we have to change the structure if you want to do more and more. It's $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year in interest. So you can get capitalized interest at maybe a percent more, which do the numbers, mate. On $1 million, it's 10 grand, and you don't have to fork it out of your own pocket. So, and then when you start getting into the bigger ones, it even gets better and better, and you can do multiple ones. So, you're exactly right. Like there's so many different plays that you can do.
So it was less money in than the banks would offer, right? Less money in, no repaying the interest throughout, and that completely destroyed all these cash flow, being able to finance it limitations.
Well, there's even other little strategies that people don't know. Like you could say, oh, this is a good development. Maybe it's not the right one right now, and I will not have enough money to start it, but I can buy it.
Sure.
Go buy the development or go buy the house that's there now.
Yeah.
Rent it out for 12 to 24 months. get equity in the project,
Treat it as
then go get yeah, exactly, get some tax benefits back. Then in 24 months time, when the market's boosted up 15 or 20% and you've got equity in that property, then go to the development funder and say, I would like to develop this property. And guess what? You won't have to put no effing fucking money in. So there are plays that you can do if you really want to do it. And I can tell you now that play there is a play that I don't use much now, but I'm about to venture into again. That play there I used at the start. The property that we flipped and developed back in the day that were held for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, made so much more money because it was sitting here and it had uplift and less money had to be put into it. So you got to understand as well, which I had to get through my head for a very long time, was it's a long game. It's not a short game. Don't. And I used to think, oh, I'm going to get this. You got to understand that it's a long game, and you got to be willing to play it. And when you hold in there longer and longer, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, it gets better. But don't venture into it if you just think you're going to go boom, boom.
No,
You got to want to do it. And it's got to be your profession.
Yeah, I think that's important. And just to wrap that point off as well, like I think it's important to, again, like you said, if you really want to do it, if a site's really good and it's an amazing opportunity, I like what you said, that you can rent it out whilst you play like a bit of a slower game to work out your design and get your money together.
You can even go in there and jazz it up a little bit and get an extra $100 a week, which is what we did to get close to it.
And that's all cool. But I think, again, I just don't want to confuse that point as well with making sure you're considerate of time in developing and flexing the muscle, because what I do advocate a lot for is time will kill deals, right? So you want to get a site, you want to get your funding sorted quickly, you want to get moving quickly, you want to get the experience quickly and the profit quickly, because time can rip profits. But that is the model.
Depends what type of developer.
Exactly. It depends. But if you've got a good site and you're not in a position to do this,
still get it.
Exactly. So that's just the context of those 2 points.
Yep.
Okay. I want to ask you, there's a big one that I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a huge one. Okay. It's probably the biggest. Okay.
Spare me.
It's the biggest. It's an identity crisis. Okay. Most of us, something that you say a lot on podcasts is that I was a developer before I was a builder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's why your reps have just always been around that, and you've blended in building to make sure it was a business of developing. Most people were builders before they were developers, and that's why most of them aren't developers. Okay. Conditioning is a huge thing. The human condition, right, is I learn a trade or I learn to be a builder. That's what I'm comfortable with. That's what pays the bills. I don't think I'm ready to gravitate over to this land, right? Because this thing subconsciously keeps me stuck. Okay. That's the big thing, right? So changing identities from a builder to a builder developer, right? It's hard as hell because you're trying to shift a person. You're trying to shift a person's identity, right? So I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged and we need to be aware of, right? In order to then start to shift, okay? And I think, again, if we're not doing reps, we're not changing the condition. We're not changing the human makeup, right? So again, what do you think is a good way if you're a builder who just does client projects, who that's what pays the bills, that's what I'm normal, that's what I believe in, that's what I believe in so much. How do you start to unwire that limitation, which is I'm just a builder, so you can start to gravitate over to being a builder developer?
Well, number one, you got to stop just thinking that you're just a builder. That's number one. If you keep thinking you're just a builder, well, you're a builder. So that's number one. And if you really want to step outside that box, I think the thing that scares the builders is they know the building so well, but they don't know the other side. So, as I've always said, I met so many really good developers. There's still developers today, like old developers that were accountants, not builders, or lawyers, not builders. I've seen doctors do more than what builders do. I've seen doctors that I've met that have owned half of East Gosford. It's just the play that you need to push outside of that for a little bit, even if it's for 2 hours of the day. Just get away from the builder for 2 hours of the day and go learn the other side of it. Just learn the numbers. Learn bits about acquisition. Just start doing that first, and then you'll start to pull your builder's mind away and say, you know what? Because you know that you can build that. And the biggest fundamental of a development is the build.
Of course it is.
right? Also, obviously, the land.
It's the
But the
blessing.
biggest fundamental is the build. So you've got, put it this way. I personally believe if you're a build development model, that the person who isn't the builder has to learn a lot more than the person who is the builder, right? The person who is the builder just has to push out of that zone for a little bit and learn the fundamentals of all the other stuff. Whereas, the build is what determines the length of the project. The build is what determines, probably 70 to 80% of the profitability.
And I agree with you 100%. I think out of a development, and I've held my position when I've had to reframe limitations, right? That the builder holds the secret, or holds the card, or holds the blessing, or holds the 80% of the whole thing that you just articulated. I think, right, if I was to go in, right, and just go, I'm going to be a developer, not knowing you, right, because we've had a good history, right, I would be so more disadvantaged. Okay, so much more disadvantaged. Luckily, we've got a good relationship, right?
Bit of a combination.
And it's a beautiful combination. But again, to your point, if you're the builder and you know how to do 80% of the development, right, it's relatively easy to infill the other parts because you don't have to be the learner. You can just have the people, right?
Yep.
For example, you can have the accountant that knows finance and knows development. You can have a broker.
Yeah, but don't just have people that don't know development.
No,
It's like now with
that's-
I've got a lawyer who knows development, or
exactly.
their partner develops, or whatever. You've got to be
Specifics, right?
specific.
Having a good frame. Accountant that knows development, lawyer that knows development, real estate agent that knows development, okay, or buyer's agent that knows development, and they're quite scarce, right? They are quite scarce, and I said that to a guy last week. I said, don't go and just hit real estate agents up for developments because they don't know how to make money at all, right? Go and find someone who sells them, who even invests in them, and knows what you want. The point is, I agree. It's like you can infill that limiting belief quite easy because you hold 80% of what needs to get done.
Yeah. Well, I even know a couple of builders who went and built for developers in Sydney, and they and have done a couple of development plays since. But that's another option. Go, instead of building for your typical client, maybe find a developer and go build a couple for them. Learn it a bit. Try and get in with the developer. Things can come out of that. So you gotta position yourself or put yourself in that environment.
Yep.
You can't just be a builder building for mum and dad and just go, I'm going to be. You've got to slowly position yourself in these environments. And like you said, you might not have the great agent yet, or you might not have but you can still push yourself into a play where you're building companies moving into building for a developer who's got a good track record, and you might do a few for him, and then you're like, right, I'm doing my own. I've seen it now, or sit down with him. And, there's heaps of different ways you can do it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that happened with one of the guys that I was mentioning before. Great guy, but what he was doing is he was in all the coaching programs, the development coaching programs as built up. He had all the beautiful software, he had all the core logic, he had everything he wanted, and all the feasibility softwares. He had fucking everything. And there was still no movement, okay? And the reality was, I just said to him, I said, you just need to align yourself with these people because they have so much confidence, which is what you need to just do the reps.
Yep.
Otherwise, you just got this massive mental limitation of, I've got all the fucking tools, but I've got no experience.
Yeah, reach out and get the experience.
Yeah, like hang off.
Reach out and get the knowledge.
Yeah, and the beauty is they don't cost heaps of money.
No.
Like development lawyers don't cost heaps of money. Like to do the basics at the start, right? Accountants have got to kind of do your stuff anyway. So if they're development specialized,
Little example, little example. As everyone knows how close me and Matt Steinwright and that are, we're mates now. So, but
you'll have to get him on the podcast, mate.
Yeah, he's a hard one, but his database is huge, and I know that he works, or has clients that are great developers, and I've met more developers in that space because of Matt. You got to look at different relationships and where they can get you, and obviously the person's gonna be great. You got to relate to them, but there's just because that person isn't a developer, you can still find the person who has a lot of developers around him or development experience or somewhere where you can pull knowledge for. And I sat down and met with heaps of them. It was great, So, I was ringing people I was ringing other developers when I got stuck, and I lost a fair bit of money, and I hadn't even spoken to them before, but got the number through someone and they were willing to say this, and this. So yeah, it's funny. I haven't thought of it like that, but there are some plays now when you look back on where
There's always a play.
there's always a play.
There's always a million plays. And again, I sometimes break it down. I just say, look, the buyer's agent or the sales agent that is specialized isn't going to cost you much money. The accountant isn't going to cost. No, aren't going to cost you much money, and you know how to do 80%. So just create the team, create the A-grade team. What do you find is a big limitation or a big blockage, something that holds a lot of guy and girl builders back, or even investors back, with doing this? That we want to address today, want to bring it to the surface?
Oh God, I guess you hear a lot of bad stories in development. You do. You hear a lot of bad stories in development. There's even, you hear a lot of bad stuff about builders. I think it scares people. I think this industry, and look, I'm not going to lie, it's not for the faint-hearted. You got to love it. You got to be willing to want to do it, because you're putting your balls on the line most of the time. But if you want to do it, what else are you here for? You know what I mean? So I think just you look at some businesses, there's always this thing around property development that it can go wrong. There is, and I think you need to just push that aside for a bit. Things that we've touched on, obviously, cash flow, you can get it. Negative thoughts. Can I do this? Yes, you can. It's just all those stock standard things that are around it, and you can really learn it and move towards it if you want to.
And something that's worked quite well in exactly that is, just like you said at the start then, is a builder is taking on the risk whether they like it or not. That's it. No, that's it. That's something to just look at and go, if I'm building for a client, in my opinion, it's probably bigger risk, right? If I do my development where it's me, my money, or my family and friends that trust me and we're doing it together, and I do it with more creation like you, not to the bloody brief of a client who usually doesn't have great taste, that is de-risked.
Well, I've been hundreds of $1,000s behind on a building project.
Exactly.
And had to stop it. And was I going to get that money? I don't know, but I did.
So I've seen more than you.
Yeah, I know.
I've seen builders get crippled, fucking crippled,
Going to court.
right? A lot of them that I've had, and the projects that they did for themselves, not big projects always, they made 5 times the money. So it's
and if it's not too big, probably less stress.
Yeah, we're not saying go crazy, but I literally see it. You do a simple single dwelling for yourself with a bit of money, right? And make a couple $100K on it.
And
versus
honest,
do that, and they make no money.
And those are the ones, and you're putting a lot of your own physical and hands into it. They're the fun ones.
But they're pearlers, and they build reps.
Yep.
And then I've looked at the other side of the P&L, and then the other side of the P&L, and you've got overheads like legal fees and NCAT and all those other ones, and you look at the wages and the fuck around on time and all this other stuff and all the things I need, the softwares and the project managers and the blah blah blah, and you look at it and you go, you made no money. Like, yes, you had a wage, but you had a small loss in the business. This thing made you money. Had you have just done that, you would have been better off and way less in risk.
Mate, even a little development company, even just a small one that does one project each time, you got 2 guys that work for you, it can be very profitable.
Oh, mate.
Do you know what I mean? Like, with low overheads, super profitable. Like, you're going in, you're doing the work, you're taking your preliminaries away, you're taking your labor away, you're taking your management away, and you're putting it into that one project, and it's a development project and a building project, and you've got 2 of you young guys working with you and learning. Mate, that can be, even that little development company can be so profitable. It'll be way more profitable than doing 4 client projects. I can tell you that now, if you're in on it, getting it done, because they're the ones that make the money. Like, and you don't have to be super big. You don't have to do all these projects or go that deep. You can just be doing that, parking the money, doing that, parking the money, put that money into something else. But that is a super profitable development model. I'm telling you now.
And fun.
It's fun.
Fulfilling.
I remember how fun it was.
So you've got time to meet with other developers or with real estate agents. So you've got time to do feasibilities. You've got time to have fun with it. Like,
100%.
You've got time to not fuck it up.
No, yep.
And I think that is, like, it's not just about the money.
Your money gets tight, put more hours in.
Yeah, it's about the experience and the fun and the joy. And I think you do that, you'll kill it.
Yep.
Like, you'll absolutely kill it. This is probably my final pet hate. I'm just too busy. I've got so many client projects still open. I need to focus on those.
Been there, done that.
I need to then they go and sign another one, and it's kind of like this self-fulfilling prophecy to being stuck forever. And it's how a lot of builders or investors will convince themselves that tomorrow is okay because they just have to handle all their current busyness
Yep.
of affairs and clients. And then 5 years goes down and it's like you're still in the same position. It's just 10 times worse. So I want to rip the final one apart, which is I'm just too busy.
I guess everyone's situation is going to be different the way they want to transition into development. I guess the first piece I can say is, fair enough, if you might need to keep signing a couple of those projects, fine. Okay. Some people can't just go, drop project, move. Sometimes it's different.
Yep.
So if you're continually just signing those projects to get through the next 12 months or whatever it is, make time for this. Still go back and make time for this, right? Work on that, make some time for this. Go start looking at sites, get active, start building that part. Why are you still making the money on this? You got to be active. You're not going to do it if you keep going that way. You've got to pull yourself away for a bit. Just say, you know what? Fucking Fridays, I'm doing this. And that's what I had to do a couple of times in between things. Fridays, I'm not fucking building. That's just not happening, right? The building company's still going to build, but Friday, I'm doing this. I'm planning my development journey and I'm going to go find a site, or I'm going to start looking, I'm going to start talking to agents or whatever it is, or I'm going to look for a JV, or You've got to be active in this space because in 5 years' time, you will still be in that space.
Yeah.
And then that will slowly start to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And you might be at a 50-50 rate, which I was doing. And then eventually you might say, I'm only going to do a project that's not a development if it suits the brand. And that's what I look at now. And that's it. But you've got to put time. It's not going to happen if you're not going to put no time or be active.
I think that's important to have it diarized and scheduled in the calendar for it to be done, because more often than not, what happens is, say the Friday, for example, something will come in from a client that's so important.
I feel like I get a Friday every day at the moment. It's moving that quick.
It's good, but it's so important that the client thing comes in, and I'll push it to next week. But if you don't stay consistent in the diary on that new shift to developing, right, you're never going to outweigh the old builder identity that holds most of the percentages, right? Because that is what you're giving all the energy and all the reactivity to. If you can't stick with a half a day to begin, then a day and a half, you're never going to transition because you're always going to find a reason to be reactive, which is, oh no, this came in and now I've got to go to court, or this came in and now I've got to go price it, or no, I've got to go and quote this, or that.
You got to have a blockout day. I got a blockout day now.
If you don't block it out, you got no chance. I hate to put that negative stance on it, but
true,
if you don't have a day, you won't make it. If you have a day, the likeliness is it will gravitate into 2.
Well, you're going to start off 20-80, and then hopefully one day, if you want to be that much into it, you're going to go 80-20.
Yeah.
And 20-80 is 1 day out of 5 days.
Yeah. If you can't do that, do a fucking Saturday.
Whatever.
Just do something.
20 days in the week.
Just block.
So mine is a Friday now, and I dedicate everything to what I want to do, and generally that's development anyway. If not, it might be a kids thing or something, whatever. But it generally has a lot to do with the development space. But I try, unless it's super urgent, and it needs to be fucking urgent, I try and just leave that building out of it for the Friday. And because what happens is weeks will catch up on you, and you might go for 4 weeks and you haven't put enough time into it. But guess what? If you've allocated that 1 day, you put 4 days into it.
Yeah.
So
and don't get me wrong, this isn't easy to do, and I'm not trying to sound like I've got it.
Took me 5 goes.
It's still taking us. Let's be honest, right? We say every week we're going to do business of developing every single couple of weeks, and then we get sidetracked, right? So the point is we're all facing this problem, but the point is that if you can address it, you will win.
Yep.
You will get that one project done, and it will show you how much better this is than client projects. But you got to find that just the commitment. That is the win. The win is the commitment in being able to do the reps.
All right, at the end, let's ask you a question. So what learnings out of this whole podcast and in your experiences, can you, in a short, brief summary, that you should let the viewers know?
I think there's a multitude of limitations or blockages or barriers. Okay, some of them are waiting for perfect conditions. Some of them are I don't have the money in and around me. Some of them are I'm just a builder. Some of them are no one would want to invest in me. Some of them are there's too much fear around doing a development from all the fear stories. Some of them are clients are less riskier bullshit, right? Clients are much more riskier than doing developments, in my opinion. And then there's a plethora of other ones as well. Okay, time isn't the right time right now. I've got too much on and I've got too much clients, etc., etc. What I'd love to do, what I'd love to do is to hear some of these other limitations from the viewers or the listeners on what is holding them back. Because even if they didn't respond to us, right, they're acknowledging and addressing the elephant in the room of why they aren't developing right now.
And we can help it out.
Yeah, but if they're happy to drop a note to us in business or developing Instagram, or wherever,
Whatever.
yeah, we can address it. We
Yep.
can actually iron that thing out on a sequel to this,
Yep.
okay? Or just
answer the question.
just answer the questions through
Yep.
Instagram or
Yep.
something. So again, I want to hear. I'd love for you to just let us know what is holding you back from doing this. What do you feel you need to be able to do this? Because
Yep.
then we can help you out.
Yep, no, I agree. So for me, it's probably if you want to do something, the time is now. Number one. Mine is sort of sweet. Be prepared to go backwards to go forwards, and it's going to happen. So you know what? And when you do rebuild or plan or but just enjoy the process of getting out of something, because when you get out of something, sometimes that enjoyment is better than winning all the time, which doesn't happen. Learn from the mistakes as much as you can. You'll probably make it again and again and again. But yeah, just and just try and keep that mindset, push the negativity away, and stop blocking yourself. And just, I guess that's what they say, just have a crack, just go for it.
And I think if you're looking at your current situation and you're going, I don't love building for clients, right? But I'm really
Don't do anything.
but I'm really excited, right? Energetically to do my own stuff.
Yep.
Then that is your answer. That is your answer, because this whole experience, right, is about having fun doing what you're doing.
Yep.
And when you're having fun doing what you're doing and creating and building for yourself, etc., you'll win at it. You'll just naturally win at it because there's good energy in it, right? And it's fulfilling and
Keep pushing,
it's fun.
You got to keep pushing.
You got to keep pushing,
push.
but you got to have fun in the process.
Exactly
and I
right.
think most of the process with clients, it's not fun, right? It's riddled with limitation. It's riddled with dictatorship from clients. You become a servant, right? You don't become a creator. You don't.
Well, there's not many industries that you can just change or flip it on its head and do it for yourself.
Because you're already doing it.
But there's not many industries. If you're selling a product online, you can't just keep selling that product to yourself. So it's one of those industries that you actually can flip it on its head and do it to yourself. So
do it to yourself or do it for
yourself.
Awesome. Good sesh.